The best episode of the best battle shonen of all time is one where no battling happens. For all intents and purposes, nothing really happens. Episode 133 of Dragon Ball, simply titled Changes, features for the entire 25-minute runtime Goku reuniting with his friends for the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai. As you might read it on a plot synopsis, it features Goku reuniting with his friends, catching up, having a laugh, talking, I guess. But that's it, really. I mean, sure, there's a handful of flashbacks to important events and the introduction of Piccolo Jr., but for what's essentially the beginning to the end of pre-Z Dragon Ball, it's rather unremarkable, almost tranquil in its presentation. Nothing is advanced, they don't establish any larger story. What we get is a beautifully animated lull, a moment of quiet before the grand finale. An entire episode dedicated not to action, not to rising stakes nor tension, an entire episode dedicated simply to characters existing in their world. Dragon Ball is not made or enjoyed solely for its excellent fight choreography, or bombastic, climactic attacks, or earth-shaking energy blasts. It's made on a foundation of good characters. At its heart, Dragon Ball is about people, quirky, flawed, determined, endlessly evolving people. Sure, you can enjoy these fights and epic moments in a vacuum, but the only reason they're so memorable is because of the excellent character work Toriyama put into the build-up. Vegeta is introduced as an arrogant, violent, petty monarch, an identity built on his superiority to the low-class warriors of other planets. An arrogance and superiority that absolutely crumbles as the series goes on. Vegeta, over the course of Dragon Ball, loses himself. He's forced to confront time and time again his strength. His very identity is not absolute. And one day he awakens to the placated, docile, domestic life his younger self would have scoffed at. The ruthless Prince of the Saiyans finds himself in a home, with a family. And yet it's not weakness that's keeping him there, it's choice. In general, the transformations he and the rest of the main cast undergo serve as a literal, physical representation of the evolution of their characters. Vegeta awakens into a Super Saiyan out of obsession, a desire to surpass Goku and re-establish his dominance as the strongest. His inner turmoil manifested outward, and when he later acquires the mark of the Ma gene, it is, similarly, a reflection of his internal conflict, his struggles with pride and his anger at losing his ruthless nature. A man who has once again lost his meaning in the form of his rival, a man who seeks to redefine himself through strength just like he had been doing so long ago. All this is to say, Dragon Ball, Super, Z, GT, and Daima are not shows about fighting. They are a show about a group of characters that define, redefine, express, and grow through fighting. Dragon Ball came to me and most other adolescent boys at a very poignant time in our lives. Shonen by definition appeal to preteen to young adult men, a time where I at least was still figuring out who I was and who I wanted to be. And it was nothing short of life-changing to see characters like Goku, Vegeta, and Gohan face insurmountable odds, galaxy-destroying monsters, walls of raw power and malice, and time again come out the other side, not just victorious, but stronger. Characters that stare evil itself in the face and find it inside themselves the strength to change and overcome. And as that little, unsure, confused dweeb, that really meant something. My first encounter with Dragon Ball Z happened at the tender age of 10-ish, when my father brought home the very last case of the infamous orange bricks, oversaturated and cropped strangely at the tail end of a series I had no context for. For a kid who grew up on regular show and Adventure Time, Dragon Ball bordered on horror, a relentless, screaming fever dream of muscle-bound warriors tearing into each other with a ferocity completely foreign to me. And as rocky as some of those memories from that time are, I can still recall the utter joy with which I watched the screen shake from every punch, the screams of characters charging up, the giant lasers that could level mountains. I watched Majin Buu dissolving people into his flesh. I didn't fully understand it at the time, but I felt it. I learned Goku's name, I learned what it meant when Vegeta called himself the Prince of all Saiyans, and even without knowing the full story, without understanding the years of build-up leading to these moments, it still felt special. Dragon Ball was a spectacle. It still carried some deeply human element at its core. For a kid like me who had never seen storytelling take itself so serious, it was revolutionary. And that's why even now I keep coming back to it. Not just for the fights or the transformations, cool as they may be, but for that feeling it gave me, of watching these characters face the impossible and somehow breaking through. And that is some beautiful, powerful shit to put in a kid's TV show I would watch after school. But guys, it's only been 8 months here. The Dragon Balls aren't ready to use yet. Goku said Super Saiyan 3 is his strongest form. Why is Old Kai still fused if the Potara have a time limit with when used with mortals? Why didn't Vegeta go Super Saiyan 3 with Beerus? The point of art is to convey a message or evoke an emotion that can be positive, that can be negative. The story that delivers the message, the themes, the emotion, can be confusing, abstract, frustrating even, and so long as it succeeds in delivering on its themes or message, there will be an audience for it. Neon Genesis, Evangelion's last 2 episodes, live in infamy. They completely abandon traditional storytelling in favor of a raw, abstract, and stylized exploration of Shinji's psyche. There is no final battle, there is no resolution to the external conflicts. The world is ending, and the story isn't interested in how. The animation becomes erratic, switching between fully detailed frames, rough sketches, and even static screens of text. Conventional narrative structure dissolves entirely. It felt like the series itself was falling apart, because Evangelion's final episodes aren't trying to answer plot questions, they're trying to resolve something much more important: Shinji's internal struggle, because that, at its core, was always the true conflict of Evangelion. Long speculated to be due to budget constraints, the truth about episode 25 and 26 is simply that Anno didn't know what he wanted until the time came. In truth, the last 2 episodes, narratively at least, are exactly what Anno wanted. Hideki Anno was horribly depressed during his time with Evangelion, something not even he knew until around the production of episode 16. Anno poured himself into this show, and it's laid out very clearly. The questions Anno asks: why am I here? Is love worth the risk of heartbreak? What does it mean to exist? Aren't just Shinji's questions, they aren't just for the show. They're Anno's, and without those last 2 episodes looking and feeling like they do, it wouldn't hit nearly as hard. It wouldn't mean half as much as it does to so many people. For all its philosophical musings about the pain of connection, the beast that shouted "I" at the heart of the world is a decidedly happy ending. Shinji accepts himself and others, he opens himself up to connection and understanding, and the process was shown fairly cleanly. Sure, it's inconsistent and confusing and erratic, but at no point does it try to disturb you. This is a process of healing, and it's shown to us as such. And then came End. If the series finale was about acceptance, the movie is about rejection. It's still designed to complement the last 2 episodes, but wholly opposite in what it decides to show us. Evangelion has already told us that Shinji's greatest enemy isn't SotE, it isn't the Angels, it isn't even the Eva. It's his fear of connection, where the series lets us experience Shinji's mind from the inside, a serene nothing where the actors in his life talk him through instrumentality and self-acceptance. End is unrelenting. It's visceral and violent. It's almost angry in its portrayal of the breakdown and rebuilding of Shinji Ikari. This time, we do see the end of the world. We see Shinji's mind as well, of course, this time represented by frantic and disturbed scribbles. We get to see the acceptance of others, the healing, but we also get to see the breakdown. The end of the world isn't clean, it isn't poetic, it isn't cathartic. It's terrifying. Where the series approached instrumentality as a quiet, abstract unraveling of the self, and drags that unraveling into the physical world. This is what it looks like when Shinji runs away. This is what it looks like when he refuses to connect with people. But for all the grandeur of its animation and the visceral horror of its imagery, this is still the same story, the same questions, the same emotions, and when End gets around to answering them, it's arguably done even stranger than in the show, because End of Evangelion doesn't just embrace abstraction, it weaponizes it. If the last 2 episodes of the series were a slow, dreamlike drift into ego death, the movie is a violent, chaotic freefall. The walls between reality and fiction, between Shinji's mind and the world around him, shatter. The art style fractures, it shifts wildly from traditional animation to rough half-formed sketches, scenes dissolve into static then reform, characters appear and vanish, warped beyond recognition. And then, Evangelion stops being animation at all. The screen fills with real people. The audience. End of Evangelion isn't just speaking to Shinji, it's speaking to us. The introspection that defines Evangelion isn't just limited to its characters. Anno turns it outward, reflecting onto the people watching. Reality bleeds in, the illusion is stripped away, and the questions that have plagued Shinji throughout the series aren't just being answered for him anymore. It's being answered for us. Because Shinji was never just Shinji. His struggle, his self-hatred, his desperate need for validation, those are things that exist outside of the screen, a deep depression that Anno himself is open about struggling with. It's telling all the fans out there to go out and live your life, make friends, fall in love. For what is a brutal and disturbing film, the message it imparts is a very hopeful one. Plot, that is the simple sequence of events that make up a story, doesn't matter. If a confusing and abstract work like Evangelion can deliver so well on its themes that it's still talked about, what's clearly more important is how a story makes you feel, how good it is at delivering its message or any other of the many character and thematic aspects that comprise an artwork. The Lord of the Rings trilogy isn't suddenly bad because they didn't ride the eagle to Mordor. Dragon Ball isn't bad because it has a series of minute plot holes here and there. Aang learning spirit bending from the lion turtle isn't bad writing because all of these seeming problems allow these narratives to deliver on thematic promises. That's not to ignore consistency, of course. There's no point in establishing the rules of a setting just to break them. If a contrivance or plot hole or whatever does take away from the story, it's right to point it out. When Roy Batty at the end of Blade Runner releases the dove from his arms, no one's thinking, where did he get the dove from? Because the dove is obviously a symbolic tool, a representation of his soul, and it's impactful because he's not supposed to have one. It's the entire thematic conflict of the movie. A contrivance that doesn't work, however, at the end of Batman Begins, Batman kills Ra's al Ghul. Sorry, no, he doesn't save him. Batman in most iterations, including this one, has an almost compulsive no-kill rule. It's a core part of who he is. His unwavering belief in human life is important to making him a hero. Bruce refusing to kill is the entire source of Ra's al Ghul's conflict with him. Batman refuses to kill, so Ra's al Ghul goes to Gotham to teach him a lesson. And Batman letting him die proves Ra's right. This is a man so dangerous, he cannot be kept alive. Ra's came to Gotham to burn it down, to liberate it from the evils it is plagued with. He came to kill the city. Sure, he's really dangerous, but okay. That is what the conflict should be. How does Bruce solve this without killing? Instead of providing a deeper moral choice for Batman, it opts for a simple resolution that feels out of character. Batman, a man who has spent his entire life making sure he doesn't cross that line, allowing Ra's to perish, doesn't align with the thematic essence of his character or the journey he's been on. It's a plot contrivance that does take away from this work's message and themes. This section was originally gonna be about pathologic. I've talked about shows with overt themes and confusing plots. I've talked about weird contrivances that don't diminish a work. I've talked about contrivances that do diminish a work. Discussing Pathologic would just be retreading old ground. Like halfway through the Horospecs route, you kind of understand the themes and the message. It's not a very subtle game. So I wanted to find something a little more out there, something you literally could not possibly understand that still evokes something beautiful. So I went to Cruelty Squad. I saw the insane visuals and thought it would illustrate the point well. If you've played Cruelty Squad, you'd know it's even less subtle than Evangelion and Pathologic. A core gameplay mechanic is betting on the stock price of the organs you harvest from the people you kill for work. It's overtly anti-capitalism. Sure, it's strange looking and the story you kind of have to piece together a la Dark Souls, but nowhere close to what I was looking for. And then I could not even begin to explain to you what LSD Dream Emulator is. No, genuinely, here's the first thing I saw when I opened the game. Are you getting it yet? This is what the menu looks like. From what I've played, the game is built around days. Each day lasts a variable amount of time, and it consists of you walking around surreal and psychedelic environments. At the end of every day, you fill out a little square on this insane chart, and that is it. That's all I could grasp. Sometimes, the day isn't even gameplay, it's just a strange video or screen of text. For all intents and purposes, it doesn't have a plot. It's a game about nothing. But it definitely feels like something. Just watch. We spawn in a pretty boring house. Remember it will come back. I fuck around with the tank controls for a second, and this is what most of my gameplay will look like. Me wandering around aimlessly until something happens. I stumble around a little until I find the first of many of these tunnels, and something about these things unnerve me. Maybe it's the footsteps after the fadeaway, maybe it's just how long they take. Nevertheless, we venture on into a museum park thing full of landscapes, and here's where the render distance really comes into play. LSD Dream Emulator is an atmospheric game. There's always this quality that something is always just out of view. The render distance leads you to places, you always see the edge of things just over there. The tank controls mean the slow reveal of another site is constantly building both this sense of adventure and kind of excitement, and also unease, dread, the thump of your footsteps. You never know what you're moving toward, only that you are moving and what you're moving past. This feeling is what's at the core of LSD Dream Emulator, and every day after only compounds on it. Day 2 is... Okay. Day 3, and we're back in the house. Okay, clearly this is some kind of hub world. We've been through the window, so we try to leave through somewhere else and get attacked by a pterodactyl thing. We run through another green world with a big pit in the middle, and hey, there's a statue guy thing. LSD Dream Emulator is an exploration game. Day 1 was some sort of tutorial thing. Day 2 was a sucker punch. Clearly, this is not a game we should expect something from. Day 3 is where it opens up to us. We play through a few dreams here. A weird toy box world with a railroad and these little guys. I watched them for a while. They're great. And look, now the sun's red and there's a ship up there. I think I'm actually starting to understand it. Day 6 opens not in the house. We spawn in another field dream. And is that a map? With an objective! We have something to move toward. A goal! This is starting to feel like a game. LSD Dream Emulator is an adventure game. Day 10 is where things start to get really strange? Cool, maybe? We walk through another toy box world, there's a bunch of teleporting around, there's another field here, and at the end of it, we walk into a cube thing full of other cubes, kind of? LSD Dream Emulator is a horror game. LSD Dream Emulator is something special. Probably not profound or groundbreaking. I certainly won't talk about it nearly as pretentiously as I would something like Death Stranding or Metal Gear, but it is special. It has no plot, no discernible message or lesson to impart. It barely even has a consistent gameplay loop. It's not one of my favorite games of all time, but it's something I'm glad to have experienced. It's one of the few games to really dig deep in you and evoke a bunch of feelings, and in large part, it's successful in doing that in unnerving and amazing and getting at you because there's no plot to follow, no story it's trying to tell, it's just colors and sounds and surrealism. Plot matters, obviously. Stories have been around as long as we have, but there's an annoying obsession with rules and objectivity when you discuss anything anymore. Obviously, I've been pulling some extreme examples. The end of Evangelion and its last 2 episodes have been confusing people since the day they came out. But the point stands. Who gives a fuck where Daima fits into canon? It's given us the best characterization since End of Z, after Super did interesting things to Goku and the squad. Who Killed Johnny Joestar is a genuinely nonsensical arc. But I mean, come on. Part 7 and Funny Valentine are heralded as some of the best to come from Araki. You really mean to tell me, because it gets some of the rules wrong, it's bad? I don't know. Maybe it's the Kojima fanboy in my blood, but things can be confusing and good. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean it doesn't work. You'd be hard-pressed to find a single Metal Gear Solid fan who could, with 100% accuracy, explain the S3 plan. Yet MGS2 is the best one. Objectively, don't at me. And that's kind of the thing, right? You don't need to get something for it to mean something. Sometimes a thing is just beautiful, regardless of your grasp on it. We act like plot is the only thing that can anchor a story. Mood, tone, texture, rhythm, sometimes, fuck it, just raw vibes. These things matter more. More than we're willing to admit. When we hyperfixate on logic and structure, we lose the weird, messy humanity that makes art hit in the first place. And sometimes, the best stuff is the stuff that doesn't tell you what to think. It just makes you think. And that's valid. That's art. That's cool.